Mindscaping. What the heck is it? We call it a metaphoric map to healing and insight. It's really a new therapy. Mindscaping is a way of polling the unconscious mind of your subject. Now, you can't do it on yourself. People ask me all the time. You do need a guide, but it is a very simple method that will help someone change. It can remove blockages from your life. It can strengthen relationships. It can give you insights. It becomes a tool for understanding problems and seeing the blind spots in your life. It can be quite startling. It becomes a way to disconnect from the past if you need to do that, and often in one session. And it also becomes a way to deal with fear, anger, sadness, trauma. It's a method for creating a better future, because when we clear up the past, we clear up the things holding us back, future gets better right away. And we can check this with a Mindscape. See, our minds like metaphors and symbols. Our right brain, to make a gross generalization, loves these things. For example, Dr. David Grove, the late psychologist, came up with clean language, which is an amazing way to listen for metaphors when people are speaking and interact with those metaphors, which changes their life. Well, Mindscaping accesses unconscious metaphors too, and I came up with this entirely without any knowledge of clean language. There's a very slight overlap between the two. Metaphors are unconscious. We live through metaphors. And often through the visual sense, the Mindscape will open the person's mind to imaginary things in front of them. Now, what we're actually doing here, I know this sounds vague, is the person will have metaphors in their unconscious, and the Mindscaping process will bring these to the surface, and the person will start to see new insights as to their problem. They'll start to realize what's most crucial in the situation, and they will get a kinesthetic response as well. So even though most of these things will be visual, they will have a feeling connected to it, and we'll be accessing that by asking the key phrase, and how do you feel about that, whatever it is. Now, the protocol is very specific, and you cannot depart from it, but it's simple as well. In one session, you can learn one training session how to Mindscape someone, but you can't use it on yourself. You act as a guide, and the subject does all the work. And the basics are this. The subject assigns a word to their problem or their issue. They call it something. If not a word, a short phrase. Could be relationships or anger or money, anything. A huge chunk like money or attitude. And what happens is that resonates in their mind. And I do something called the city pre-frame. We say, if you were to go to a city with me in a tour group we'd never been before, with all these cool people, you'd want a map to find your way around. The best restaurants, the theaters, the beach, sports arenas, whatever. But you wouldn't want a map with too much detail. You wouldn't want to know the electrical grid or the rainfall patterns or that sort of thing. The pre-frame is important because it engages the unconscious mind of the subject, so they only get enough information to solve the problem they have named. We don't need too much detail in the map, which will cloud things up, make it way too complex. So the pre-frame is important for the first session at least. Now, what happens is we get into a specific state for this using Dr. Sylvia Hartman's heart healing position. This becomes the substitute for a trance induction. I have them open their hands wide, put them over their heart, and take 3 deep breaths with their eyes closed and say their word each time. And then let their hands drop down. Now, what this does is it creates a different state by shifting the breathing, and the unconscious mind begins to pay attention that you have started. And hypnosis never even has to be mentioned. That's what's wonderful about Mindscaping, or one of the wonderful things. You'll get a trance automatically. And the map now becomes created in their unconscious, and they explore it with help from you, the guide. Now, it's crucial that you mark the starting point, the chair they're sitting, and say they'll be able to find their way back if their mind wanders, whatever, at the end of the session. Realize, though, the Mindscape is run entirely from that chair. They're not getting up and wandering around or turning into Aquaman or all these other strange things people turn it into. Directly in front of the person, when I say to them, now they're in the map, I say, what do you notice directly in front of you? And that will be a symbol of the problem. Every time, because that's what you're aiming it at. What's right in front of them? Now, directly behind the person is the past. But we never say that. We never say, oh, that's the past behind you. None of that. Just leave it. And you may see notable things in the past that need to be changed. And that's a different thing altogether, though. Now, the side issues, you can ignore them safely. And the distant horizon, way beyond the problem, will be the resolution of whatever issue it is that they are working on. That's why we check and see what's on the horizon. It should be something positive. And we'll check and make sure there's a clear path to get to the horizon. That's pretty well it. By moving things changing the landscape, making specific, gentle shifts. The map is adjusted, and we landscape it as needed. The ecology is checked with the person at the end. How do you feel about this now? And I'm looking at them and calibrating their shifts so that they're feeling better and they're smiling, whatever. Then they exit the map by reversing the heart healing. Come back to now. Now, there's two possible outcomes when you do a proper Mindscape. And typically, you're only going to do them for about 20 minutes. 20 is plenty. The two outcomes are they will gain an amazing insight into their problem so they can fix it. But on other occasions, the problem just fixes itself after the Mindscaping. It's very odd how that happens because the unconscious continues to work on it beneath their awareness. And they'll put snippets of conversations together or notice something, and all the pieces start to fall in place when they're back on the surface, and the problem can completely disappear. If you want to find out more about Mindscaping, look at the link in the description here, and you can study it with me and get the full class so you can Mindscape anyone.